Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and all the attendees to the symposium, welcome. I am Moon Chang-oh, Director of the National Accounting and Fiscal Studies Center of the KIPF. Now we will begin the 5th KIPF Public Sector Accrual Accounting International Symposium. I'd like to thank all the participants joining us today from home and abroad. The 5th KIPF Public Sector Accrual Accounting International Symposium will proceed with a keynote speech, theme presentations, and also discussion later on under the theme of the integrated fiscal information of Korea's public sector. The symposium is now live streamed, and we have Korean English simultaneous interpretation. Channel number 1 is for Korean, channel number 2 is for English. And also those who are joining us online, virtually, on the YouTube channel of the KIPF, you may listen to both language of the interpretation. And now we will officially begin the 5th KIPF Public Sector Accrual Accounting International Symposium. Before we officially begin the symposium, we will have the opening ceremony. Opening address will be delivered by Dr. Lee Young, President of the KIPF. Dr. Lee studied economics at the University of Michigan and has been a professor at Hanyang University School of Economics and Finance since 2002, building a long-standing career in Korea's economic and fiscal fields. He also has gained extensive experiences in both government and academia, serving in roles such as Vice Minister of Education and Associate Research Fellow at KDI. Currently, he is serving as the President of the KIPI. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am President. I was about to make mistakes by saying that I'm from Hanyang University because it's only a month since I got here. So I'm the president of the KIF. My name is Lee Young, and welcome everyone to the 5th International Symposium on Accrual Accounting, hosted by the Korean Institute of Public Finance. Thank you for coming. Since its inaugural meeting in 2020, the KIF International Symposium on Accrual Accounting, now in its 5th year, is a new forum for public accounting and finance experts from home and abroad to discuss current issues in accrual accounting and ways to improve the system and contribute to strengthening public financial management. Before anything, I'd like to thank the President of the Korean Association for Government Accounting for accepting our request for congratulatory remarks, and also Mr. Andrew Blasey, Deputy Head of Public Management and Budgeting of the OECD, for coming all the way. And we will meet Mr. Guohua Huang through the Zoom connection, who's a senior economist at the IMF, who's going to give us the keynote speech on guiding principles of consolidation in fiscal reporting. And my special thanks also goes to Professor Park Sung-jin from Yonsei University, one of the old boys, so-called. And he's gone back to the university, who was working formerly as the director of our KIF, and also General Manager Park Jung-gyu from Local Finance Association, and Senior Manager of the Korea Fiscal Information Service, who are going to join us in the themed presentation. And I also thank Professor Kim Bong-hwan from Seoul National University, who's going to be moderating the session of the discussion. And we are joined by so many distinguished experts, including Mr. Dmitry Garfunkel and many other experts. The development of consolidated financial information of public sector entities in Korea, which is the theme of today's symposium, is a national challenge that should accompany policy efforts to improve the sustainability of government finances. Demographic crises such as low birth rates and aging populations and climate change continue to drive mid to long-term fiscal demand, but fiscal deficits and national debt are also rising, requiring in-depth discussions to ensure public finance sustainability. In response, governments have implemented the fiscal compact and have continued their policy efforts to ensure fiscal soundness, increase transparency of fiscal operations, and maintain intergenerational equity. To effectively manage current and future government expenditures and establish sustainable fiscal policy, integrated and consolidated public finance information covering the entire country, including the central and local governments and public institutions, is essential. Consolidated public sector financial information provides a bird's eye view of assets, liabilities, net worth, revenues, and expenses across the country's finances, contributing to strengthening fiscal soundness, transparency, and credibility by providing an accurate picture of the country's overall financial situation and serves as an essential basis for mid to long-term fiscal planning. The United Kingdom, considered a model for financial reporting, produces consolidated accounts covering more than 10,000 public sector entities, including central and local government and public corporations, and their revenue, expenditure, assets, liabilities, and the commitment and contingent liabilities are all included, and the Office for Budget Responsibility publishes Fiscal Risk and Sustainability Report, which forecasts the government's long-term revenue, expenditure, and debt levels, and sets out measures to improve the country's fiscal management, including plans for fiscal austerity. Based on this comprehensive framework, the UK has been working as a model example to the countries around the world. However, in Korea, the central government and local governments and public institutions prepare separate financial statements, which limits the ability to comprehensively understand the assets, liabilities, net assets, revenues, and expenses of the public sector as a whole. In order to address these issues and identify the solutions, throughout the topic of today's symposium, we intend to explore the need for consolidated finance information across the public sector and related cases through presentations and discussions and continue the policy debate. With low birth rate, aging population, income gaps, and unbalanced regional development requiring the injection of public finance, we need to constantly check the sustainability of government finance. I hope today's symposium will be a platform for meaningful discussions to form consensus on the need and urgency for integrated and consolidated public sector finance information. In closing, the Korea Institute of Public Finance will be standing at the forefront of academic and policy discussions to reach our goal, including today. And today's symposium is one such commitment of ours, and I truly hope that this will be another stepping stone for all of us. So thank you again for joining the symposium today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. President Lee emphasized the timeliness and importance of consolidated fiscal information in the public sector for sustainable finance and fiscal policy, offering his encouragement for the symposium. Thank you for your opening remarks. And now we will have congratulatory remark from Professor Kim Won-hee, President of the Korean Association of Government Accounting. Professor Kim has also dedicated approximately 27 years to teaching and researching in the management and accounting at Kachun University, while also actively engaging with various public and government institutions. He has served as director of the National Accounting and Fiscal Statistics Center and Public Research Center at the KIPF, and has served the management evaluation team for the public institutions at the Ministry of Finance and Finance, demonstrating leadership across the different public sectors. He is now the president of the KAGA. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. It is a great honor for me to give these congratulatory remarks at this fifth Public Sector Accrual Symposium, and also President Lee Yong and also Mr. Andrew Blasey, Deputy Director of Public Management and Budget at the OECD, and Mr. Guo Hua Huang, Senior Economist at the IMF. Thank you for your contributions. Applying and utilizing accrual accounting, a method primarily used in the private sector within national and public sectors, is a challenging and complex worldwide. Nevertheless, implementing accrual accounting to accurately determine the scale of assets and liabilities from fiscal operations, as well as to calculate the cost of public services provided over a year, holds significant value. And to undertake this important mission, Korea has specialized institutions. For the national government, the Ministry of Economy and Finance has set up the Government Accounting Finance Statistics Center, while for local governments, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety has established the Local Statistical Center. Certified public accountants with extensive practical expertise or experiences in the private sector, along with great researchers in public finance, work in these institutions, making substantial contributions to fiscal and the policy application. And the Government Accounting and Fiscal Studies Center is hosting its fifth symposium aimed at sharing and learning from diverse experiences of Korea and other countries around the world. Over the years, the symposium has delved into timely topics such as prerequisites for successful accrual adoption, estimation, disclosure of public pensions, use of accounting information for fiscal risk management, and strategies for improving contingent liability management and climate change, ESG, and many others. This year's symposium's topic, the consolidated financial information in the public sector, is also a critical issue. It covers complex but essential subjects like the scope of the public sector and key financial statements for fiscal policy. And in particular, given the diverse characteristics of the public sector in each country, generating internationally comparable consolidated information is a highly sophisticated but meaningful task. Such consolidated information allows for an objective understanding of each country's fiscal status and serves as foundation for fiscal soundness management. In overcoming the financial crisis, Korea has put a lot of efforts in maintaining fiscal soundness and successfully achieved its balanced budget goals. However, with the unpredictable external shocks like the COVID-19 and demographic changes like the low birth rate, there are concerns about the fiscal sustainability from the mid to long-term perspective. Korea has taken early steps to compile internationally standardized fiscal statistics, which form the foundation for fiscal management by meticulously measuring the unfunded liability for civil servant pensions and reflecting it in the national financing statements. Korea continuously monitors that sustainability. Not just the non-profit public institutions, but also the public entities are under our management scope, and we are exceeding the international standard scope of the general government to manage fiscal policy comprehensively. And also, Korea regularly publishes mid to long-term fiscal projections with a 70-year horizon and is preparing a fiscal rule. We believe that these efforts and achievements reflect Korea's adherence to the guidelines set forth by the international organizations. And taking this opportunity, I'd like to thank the IMF and OECD for their role in having these standards. I hope that this symposium will be a great venue to gain insights about the international trends and share Korea's fiscal management efforts and providing opportunity for advancing insights. And I'd like to thank the presenters once again. Congratulations on the opening of the 5th International Symposium of KIPF. Thank you so much.
President Kim Hwan-hee encouraged the importance of adopting accrual method, the role and achievements of the National Accounting and Fiscal Statistics Center, and the discussions on public sector consolidated fiscal information, the theme of the symposium, as a basis for fiscal prudence management. Thank you. And next, we will invite the Deputy Head of Public Management and Budgeting from the OECD, Mr. Andrew Blasey, for congratulatory remarks. Andrew Blasey has extensive experience in public finance, having spent nearly 9 years as a budget director and advisor at the New Zealand Treasury. He's currently working at the OECD on public sector management and budgeting policy, supporting governments around the world in their fiscal policies. Please welcome Mr. Blasey with a warm round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure, a privilege to be here today, and thank you to the President for the invitation to provide these congratulatory remarks at the start of this symposium. This year's topic on consolidated financial information in public sector entities in Korea is an extremely relevant one and an extremely fitting one for the challenges that we face globally. The OECD has a long-standing and strong relationship with the KIPF, and it has been through reciprocated engagements and interactions from KPIF representatives coming to OECD meetings, as much as OECD people like myself joining your own meetings here today. That interaction on budgeting and financial reporting has been through the OECD senior budget officials, and most of that connection on financial reporting and accounting has been with our working party on financial management and reporting, where Korea has made many contributions. As part of those contributions, I'm looking forward to listening to the presentations and listening to the panelists today. There are many professional colleagues here in the room, which reflects part of a close-knit professional community that works hard to improve the effectiveness and value from public sector accounting. With this, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Dr. Lee, the President, to Wei Hee Kim from Guangzhou University, from Woo Hyung Chang, Senior Fellow here at KIPF. It was only in March this year that we met in Paris with the Vice Minister of Economy and Finance, Yong Sang Kim, as part of a signing ceremony, which again showed the very strong relationship and the leadership role that KPIF performs. Grateful to have met today Professors Sung-Jun Park again and Professors Kim from Cha University. Of course, joined here with colleagues from international organizations, and in particular looking forward to hearing from Gyo Hwang, who we have done work together before, and have a long-standing work with Dimitri through the PIFA Secretariat, which makes the ground for a very interesting afternoon. And not least, of course, to hear from Ross Smith from IPSAS-B. The OECD work with this particular centre in KIPF commenced back in 2010 when the centre was formed, and has evolved over the years as the KIPF has looked at transitional issues from accrual accounting, topics such as asset valuation, and more recently, fiscal risk management. This, I think, shows very much, this symposium shows very much the emphasis that KIPF gives to international coordination and connectedness in its work. And one of the interesting things I find with symposiums like this is that they are action-forcing events. They bring together the deadlines from the work programs throughout the year so that we can benefit from hearing from them. I find myself in the position with congratulatory remarks that this might be action-rewarding event in terms of recognizing the great progress that has been made with this year's work program. As has been mentioned already this afternoon in terms of long-term challenges from such things as climate change, aging population, brings together or focuses the challenge that comes from understanding long-term fiscal soundness for the government's financial and fiscal position. It's the work of the OECD's senior budget officials that has focused on three areas. Firstly has been the quality of budget institutions, and this is not just the existence of budget institutions, but the quality of what is the component parts of a budget framework. For this, the OECD has its Spending Better framework to identify 10 elements, 10 principles of a budget system. And an important aspect of that, of course, is financial reporting. The second aspect is empowering public understanding, and that is to help improve fiscal literacy, amongst other things, in terms of being better placed to tackle fiscal challenges, whether they be long-term, such as climate change and ageing, or the ones that present themselves in the coming year's budget. And the third area is strategic budget initiatives. And these are things that are cross-cutting, that a government prioritizes across all ministries and departments, that requires a particular coordination and leadership role in budgets. And each of these areas actually has a relevant part to the theme for this year's symposium in terms of consolidated financial statements, but also one that I was learning about just before the symposium in terms of linking budgets and financial reporting together. And I think the relevance of this goes to showing the ways in which it is possible to attain greater value from financial reports and from financial reporting, and also ways of increasing the transparency in which financial results are prepared by including information that is relevant to users and that can be relevant for decision-making purposes. The OECD has done work with several countries on this in terms of reviews of accrual accounting reforms, such as in France, reviews of the implementation of those reforms, such as in Ireland, and looking at developments in fiscal risk management and financial reporting through multiple case studies. And I think the work with Korea in terms of linking budgets and financial reporting is yet another illustration of where greater value and greater transparency is able to be achieved. In terms of the consolidated reporting, the value that comes from having accounting policies, comprehensive reporting, and disclosures is increasing the meaningfulness that those statements are providing to users. And I think most recently, the talk on this always gravitates at the moment to climate-related disclosures and the relevance of including those in terms of the activities of government and the implications from the financial reporting for that to now be included in financial disclosures, and seeing the great strides that have occurred to produce and prepare for standards in the public sector, both being informed by what has taken place in the private sector and capital markets, and making adjustments to recognize the unique characteristics of the public sector in this. I think the breadth of the work programs in these two areas alone show that there is a lot to congratulate KIPF on in terms of its work program and the focus of the centre and the expertise of the centre in pursuing this work. With that, I'm grateful for the opportunity to provide these remarks and thank everyone. I look forward to listening to presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew Bledge. As he said, the OECD is also interested in this topic, and also he shared some trends and insights, and thank you for the great remarks. And moving on, now we will invite our distinguished guest to have a picture group photo session. So the special guest, please follow the guidance of our staff to be on the stage for a group photo op.
그럼 본격적으로
Okay, now we will move on to the main session of today's symposium. First, we will invite senior economist Guo Huang of IMF, who will present on the guiding principles. He will have like a 25-minute presentation. He studied the economy at the Beijing University, and also he is now the senior economist of the IMF, responsible for the fiscal reporting. Please, now I turn it over to Guo Huang.
So, good afternoon. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present in this symposium. It's really a great pleasure and honor. And thank President Lee, President King, and Andrew for the opening remarks. Very good for me to understand the context. And for today, my presentation will be on the guiding principles of fiscal consolidation. Let me pull out my slides, shell. So I hope it is clear to you. Okay, let me start. First, let's imagine a case that you are a chief financial officer, that you are managing a company, but you don't have much financial information on all the branch of your company, and you only have aggregate information. And you only have the current cash position of HQ, but with very limited information to the others. And also, you don't have the balance sheet of the whole company. And you don't know the progress of your big construction projects. And even with limited financial information, you can only have them like 6 months after the end of the reporting period. And you don't have the details of all these accounts, like your revenue, expense, asset, and liabilities. But you need to manage this company. So what are you going to do? I guess for many people, you will think this is crazy. How can I manage a company with such limited financial information? But this is very often the case in public sector. That is for many finance ministers or parliament members. They have to make decisions based on very limited financial information. So how can we expect them to make correct, prudent, effective decisions based on such insufficient financial information? Keeping this in mind, so for today's presentation, I would like to cover 4 topics. The first is, why would we need accrual reforms, and what the benefits of consolidated accounts are? And the second is on what to do with the consolidation. What is the boundary of general government? What is the boundary of public sector consolidation? Then the third is on how to compile, how to consolidate fiscal accounts. And then the last one is on next steps. How can we leverage accounting reforms to improve fiscal reporting? let me jump into the first topic. Why accrual accounting reform? What benefits we can get from accrual accounting reforms? We know that Korea has made significant progress in accrual accounting reforms. And one point I want to discuss today is that accrual accounting reform itself, it is a means. Itself is not the end of this reform. So all the costs incurred for these reforms, they need to be justified by the benefits. So we already heard from President Lee that we use this financial information for better decision making, how to support long-term fiscal sustainability, how to make relevant fiscal decisions for investment or fiscal consolidation. So these very important fiscal policy decisions, they need to be based on this better information provided by accrual accounting. And then we all know greater transparency, improved accountability. These are also highlighted by, OECD survey a couple of years back on accrual accounting reform. So these two are all well recognized. But in terms of supporting decision making, is still some area kind of in the progress. There are also many benefits originate from the broader coverage of stocks, flows, and institutions out of this accrual accounting reform. So this reform should enable the compilation of individual and consolidated data for all institutions under public control. The reform enable full coverage of assets, liabilities, and related flows. In the government financial statistics concept means all these transactions. And also facilitate the compilation of more reliable and comparable data. On this, we will discuss what kind of benefits for fiscal statistics come out of this accrual accounting reform. So first is, of course, we have more relevant and useful fiscal statistics by replacing cash-only information. In addition to cash inflow, cash outflow, now with accrual accounting, we have the full balance sheet, asset, liabilities. We also have this revenue, expense, in addition to cash information, right? Sometimes people are a little bit confused that for accrual accounting reform, should we get this cash information? We should keep in mind cash information will still be there, but we have more other types of data. And then the second benefit for fiscal statistics is the data becomes more, source data become more reliable. These are based on very prudent, solid accounting data. And more efficient compilation methods, especially for countries which introduce very comprehensive and very efficient IFMIS, that is integrated financial management information system. And then you get all these underlying source data directly from this system, rather than to use like surveys or models or other statistical techniques to like kind of estimate the data. And also these better, more comprehensive accounting data, they can facilitate more elaborate analysis. I list, a few examples. For example, the fiscal risk analysis. IMF has in recent years developed some fiscal risk toolkits, which you can find them with this link. These fiscal risk analysis really based on this good accounting data. For example, under cash accounting, you probably have no information on PPPs, public-private partnerships. With accrual accounting, then you capture them. And we all know that PPPs, they are a very major source of fiscal risks. So with these rich accounting data, then we can develop these fiscal risk tools we call PFRAM, PPP Fiscal Risk Management Assessment. So this tool can show you how the PPPs, they bring in the fiscal risks. And similarly, we have these tools for government guarantees. We observe that guarantees create a lot of fiscal burden in many countries. But under cash accounting, you cannot see them, right? With accrual accounting, then this information become more visible. And similarly, I mean, on this portal, you will also find other toolkits. These are a lot of them based on this accrual accounting information. And then the second, we have another tool is fiscal transparency evaluation. Here, one pillar is specifically for fiscal reporting. And we also have another tool that is public investment management assessment. So with these mainly non-financial assets information, then they can contribute to more effective public investment management. Now let's move to the second topic, that is what is the boundary for general government and what is the boundary for public sector. These are very critical concepts under the GFS, Government Finance Statistics. The objective of GFS. So GFS is part of the integrated system of macroeconomic statistics. So we all know SNA, System of National Accounts. That is the core system. It covers the domestic national economy. Then there are specialized parts of macroeconomic statistics, which includes the GFS and also external sector statistics, mainly balance of payment, BOP, and the international investment position. Also, it has the monetary and the financial statistics. So all these are integrated system of macroeconomic statistics. So GFS is designed to support fiscal analysis and policy making. GFS is trying to show how government finance can impact on the rest of the economy. So later on, we will discuss the different sectors within the economy. And then for GFS, we mainly focus on the sector we call general government sector. And we can see how this sector will interact with the other sectors, like corporation sector, household sector, the rest of the world, and how that will work. That is macroeconomy economists need to study on. And in terms of consolidation, this process eliminates the internal transactions and cross-holdings within the general government sector. And GFS provides data. These are comprehensive, standardized, transparent, and consistent, and also comparable. So for nature of consolidation, it involves to present that information of a group of institutional units in the context of government entities, as if they all constitute a single unit. So we treat all the government units, put them together, and treat it general government as a single unit. Then consolidation, it facilitates an evaluation of impact of this group on the rest of the economy. We just discussed. For GFS, we look at how the government sector, they can impact on the rest of the economy. So there are mainly two steps. One is first to aggregate. So add up all the stocks and the flows line by line. And then the second step is to eliminate all these cross holdings, internal transactions. So basically eliminate double count. The consolidation includes both the intrasectoral and intersectoral two parts. Intrasectoral because within government sector, there are subsectors. You can look at, central government and subnational government. I think President Lee commented on this as well. And so we need to do, intrasectoral consolidation. And for example, the central government itself, and intersectoral consolidation. For example, we do consolidation between the central government and the subnational governments. So the nature of consolidation, it is similar in the government finance statistics and also in the financial accounting, but the boundaries, they are different. So for financial accounts, the consolidation limit to all these controlled entities. So control is the concept for to define the boundary of the reporting. For GFS, so it determines the public sector. So this public sector concept is a little broader than general government sector. We will show you a figure later on, which will be clear. We based on control and also the consolidation of subsectors. So the following steps, I will explain a little bit more what I meant on these GFS consolidation. But before that, let's just kind of look at the big picture. That is, for macroeconomic data, they need to be organized systematically, need to be grouped to support macroeconomic analysis. So we need to first to delineate the domestic economy from the rest of the world. And we need to identify the various types of institutional units that operate in the domestic economy. On this, I will show you, discuss further on the next slide. And then we need to group the economy into sectors and the subsectors. The sectors include government sector, non-financial corporation sector, financial sector, household sector. So then it will be facilitate this macroeconomic analysis to see how these different sectors, they interact with each other. And then, but for accounting purpose, the reporting unit is used for consolidation purpose. Typically, there are no subsector classifications, and but potentially we can use segment reporting to align the sectoral classifications in GFS with the accounting. So in IPSAS, there is a dedicated standard in terms of segment reporting that can facilitate the GFS and financial accounting. Okay, now let's look at the types of institutional units. Generally, we can differentiate the institutional units into two. One is household. The other type is legal and social entities. Within the legal and social entities, there are three different entities, or we call institutional units. First is corporations and quasi-corporations. The second is non-profit institutions. And the third is government unit. Given the time limit, I don't think we can go into the specific definitions, but I really want to highlight 2 points. The first is when we decide the institutional units, we cannot just depend on its name. For example, in some countries, we see public corporation, entity with the name like a road company. But if you look at its economic substance, it doesn't provide any market-based, goods or services. They mainly receive appropriation from the government and deliver construct the roads, to provide public service to without any charges. So these don't meet definition of corporations. So we should classify them as government units. And the second point is that some individual reporting entities, financial accounting reporting entities, and they may not necessarily be institutional unit in the statistic context. For example, contingency reserve fund for financial reporting purpose, it can be treated as a reporting unit, but itself is not institutional unit. So I will probably skip these 2 slides and jump into this one. This gives you a very clear picture on what we talk about the sectors of economy and also how we map the institutional units into the different sectors. So on the top of this figure, we can see the economy is divided into general government sector, non-financial corporation sector, financial corporation sector, household sector, and the non-profit institution servicing household sector. And within the general government sector, there are subsectors, including the central government, state government, or in some countries called province government. Then we have the local government, and there are social security funds. And in some countries, social security funds, they are separate subsectors. In other countries, they may be grouped into central government or part of state government or local government. And then for the second sector, non-financial corporation sector, it covers both public non-financial corporations and private non-financial corporations. And similarly, for financial corporations sector, there are public financial corporations and also private financial corporations. So for subsectors, they can be identified, could be further presented as either budgetary or actual budgetary units under the general government sector. For public corporations, they are all market producers, and which means you need to charge on your service or goods you provided based on the market, rather than provide for free. For example, the example we discussed, then they are not public corporations. But public corporations means these corporation units, they are under the control of a government unit or another public corporations. And the control here is not determined by, only by ownership, but by a range of indicators of control. Let's look at these different indicators when control being considered. So ownership of the majority of the voting rights, and the control on the board or other governing body, or the control of the appointment and removal of the key personnel, for example, the head of the entity, or control of key committees of the entity, or in some countries, even though you don't have majority of the shell, but you have the golden shells. And you have the regulation, the control, the power. Or you have the control of a dominant public sector consumer or a group of public sector customers. And also you have the control, which is, attached to the borrowing from the government. In some cases, one indicator could be sufficient, but in many other cases, you would need to use several separate indicators to look at, to assessment. One thing I want to highlight here is only the concept of general government and public sector, these data are internationally comparable. As we previously discussed that, for example, for central government, some countries you may include social security funds, but some others you may not. So, but for general government, this concept is universal, is comparable across countries. Now let's move to the third topic, that is on how, what is the practical tips or skills, rules that for compilation and consolidation. The first step is, of course, to collect source data. There are typically three manners. The first is you collect the source data from IFMIS, we discussed. That's really, we observe in many countries, if you have very good IFMIS system, that can substantially improve the quality of the source data for GFS. The key here is really to have a multi-dimensional standardized chart of accounts. Such chart of accounts, they should have standardized categories of assets, liabilities, revenue, and expense across the whole government. And the chart of accounts should consider budgetary, accounting, and the statistic reporting needs. And they should also identify the counterpart transactions. Ideally, there should be a segment in the chart of account that is for administrative classifications, and then you can easily identify the counterpart within the government sector. But there are also some cases that people use the structure of accounts themselves for these identification purpose. For example, like grants, transfers to local government. So based on the name of these accounts, you know is an internal transaction. That's the ideal situation, for IFMIS to be the source of your GFS data. But in many cases, some countries rely on the standardized reports to be submitted by the compilers, by the line ministries, by the agencies. So they use their own source data, and but they provide these reports for consolidation. And then for financial statements, these are usually for in the case of like public corporations. But in many cases, a hybrid approach can be used, which means mix of all these. Then after you collect the data, then the next step is to do adjustment, because the differences exist in terms of accounting policies used by different entities, or the different reporting days, or different methodologies. But I think the key thing here is that we have a saying that consolidation is an imperfect science, which is quoted in the GAFSC 1986. Consolidation issues, we heard this in many different countries, but I think the issue is that we can focus on those major items for the consolidation. In accounting terms, we focus on the material items. For government, grant transfers are usually very big, and also like interest, loans, debt securities in some cases that are very important. Then accounts receivable, payable, probably not that significant in most cases, not for taxes. For equity, yes, in many countries, especially those with a big size of public corporations, then purchase and sales of goods and services are not that big. Then some tips and tricks. Again, focus on the significant amounts, the big items. And some tricks here is like consolidation itself is a symmetric process, right? So in some cases, you change the aggregates, for revenue, expenditure, for example, but the balance don't change. Or you change, the aggregate on assets, liabilities, but the net assets, they don't change. So if the focus here is only on the balance item, then some of these, the consolidation data, sometimes they are not that critical. So, but overall, for big items, they need to be eliminated to avoid double account to the extent possible. And in some cases, you can rely on one institution then to kind of get imputed transaction, counterpart transaction of the other side. And for the financial assets and the liability information, usually the information from creditor, they are more accurate. And then for discrepancies that exist, and then of course we need to try to reconcile all these discrepancies. But if that's not possible, then second best is to decide which party's information would be more reliable. In most cases, that the information at higher level of government is more reliable than lower levels of government. Given the time limits, I probably need to jump to the final section that is on the next step. Accounting reforms, they can support improved fiscal reporting, but there were some lessons, experience we learned from some countries. For example, like for decision-making purpose, timeliness is really important. For fiscal policy decision-making, if you look at information like half a year back, then they become not that relevant. So for that purpose, we need to speed up the provision of financial information. So in some cases, we observe that even though government provides these quarterly or annual financial statements, but they usually have a very big time lag, then which means the information kind of lose relevance in terms of decision making. Even though for the purpose of transparency, accountability, they are still relevant, useful, but for decision making purpose, then they become less useful. And some kind of mistakes they were made in the accounting policies decisions. There are sometimes very different accounting policies between financial accounting and also the fiscal GFS. Then it will require a significant amount of time to reconcile or to do adjustments. But we have observed a lot of progress in terms of harmonizing the accounting and also statistics. for the, at the macro level, the 1993 SNA, it started into introduce accurate reporting. Then GFS followed in 2001. And also there was a task force established on harmonizing the public sector accounting with the GFS, and also very close collaboration in the 2008 SNA and the GFSM 2014. So those unnecessary differences were eliminated, and the Annex 6 to the GFSM 2014, it basically compiled IPSAS and the GFS guidelines, and also IPSAS in IPSAS there is a dashboard to compile these two sets of standards. And now collaboration continues. We will discuss more on the next slide. GFS Advisory Committee, we have IPSAS-B representative in that advisory committee. Also, MF observes the IPSAS development. So just to update you that the GFSM 2014 update has already been launched. The target completion date is by the end of 2027. And as we discussed, the GFS Advisory Committee be reestablished. So I provide all these details here. If you're interested, you can get to online to check it. Here is the roadmap. For this, I would like to highlight that these are research projects, and I would strongly encourage you to look at these, and you are most welcome to participate in these research projects. We can work together to make these new GFS standards to be more useful for the public. Thank you very much. Let me stop here. And here these are the email address. Please feel free to send us emails if you have any questions.
Thank you very much.
네.
Thank you very much. Mr. Guo Huang talked about the benefits of the accrual accounting, the tools and benefits, and also compare the concept, and in alignment with international standards, we can increase the comparability and we can make better decisions based on the information. That is the principles for the accrual system reform. Thank you for the insights. And from now on, we will have the presentations. And we have 3 presentations ready. First, I'd like to invite Professor Park Sang-jin from the Yonsei University to talk about the consolidation of financial information, a case for Korean government, for 20 minutes. Please join me welcoming him to the stage. Professor Park studied accounting at the University of Texas and has been actively involved in the field of accounting research, both the United States and Korea, since 2008. And recently, he served as director of the GAFSC at the KIPF, and he's currently a professor of the Global Public Administration at Yonsei University, doing a lot of active research on ESG and reporting standards. And he was also elected as a member of the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, and will begin his tenure or service next year. Please. We have a guest from OECD, World Bank, and other countries, so I will do my presentation in English. I have my script, so I will do it in English.
Thank you for everyone. I'm Sung-jin Park from Yonsei University, studying government accounting and public financial management. I'm an incoming IPSAS-B member from 25, and until last August, I have served as the executive director of Government Accounting and Finance Statistics Center at KIPF. And partly because of all of this hats I have worn, I'm very grateful to have this chance to put our minds together with our esteemed colleagues from KIPF, OECD, World Bank, and IPSB, including presenter from IMF. As the title of my presentation implies, I'm about to talk about the consolidation of fiscal information in Korea. While the preparation of consolidated financial statement of government may sound as a highly technical topic to be discussed in the setting like this, open to the general public, but I'm trying to bring our attention to the more abstract, higher level to see the big picture of using accrual accounting system in the public sector. To give you a historical background of using accrual accounting in Korean public sector, I would like to point out a couple of things here. Flows of public money in Korea are mainly covered by three entities: central government, local government, and public institutions. And traditionally, public institutions, including public corporations and not-for-profit quasi-governmental institutions, have been using accrual-based accounting system. But since 2013, the reporting standard has been converted to IFRS. In the general government sector, Korea has followed a tiered approach by introducing accrual accounting to local government first for fiscal year 2007, and then scale up the practice and apply to central government fiscal management since fiscal year 2011. And due to the tiered approach, the legal framework have also been developed separately in sequence, with local finance act first and followed by National Accounting Act for central government. And to operate the accrual accounting system, the local accounting statistics center at Local Finance Association have been working very closely with the Minister of the Interior and Safety. Likewise, Government Accounting and Finance Statistics Center at KIPF has been working with Minister of Economy and Finance. More specific to the consolidation practice, National Accounting Act stipulates that Minister of Finance should prepare reports on settlement of government accounts, quote, by integrating each central government office's reports of settlement of accounts, end quote. So, consolidated financial statement of Korean government, central government, was submitted to a National Assembly is actually a whole of central government accounts, including all budgets, funds, and quasi-government institutions under the purview of line ministries. However, as you all know, the scope of Korean public sector is much wider. And as you can see from the figure, different boundaries drawn to various scopes of entities rely on different reporting standards. Central government consolidation is done by national accounting standard. Local government goes with their own way, and non-financial public corporations are included in the consolidation process only for the calculation of debt statistics based on PSDS. An economist at Bank of Korea generates national accounts by covering the entire public sector based on SNA 2008. And because of this fragmentation of reporting standards, it becomes a challenge from the citizen's point of view to understand the current status of public finance. Using debt and liability information as an example, there are many numbers circulating in the public discussion, including D1 reflecting statutory debt only per National Finance Act, and D2 information for general government sector debt based on GFS, and D3 public sector debt number calculated following PSDS. On top of all these numbers, every year when central government financial statements are released around May, people often question the soundness of public finance by mixing D1, D2, D3 debt figures with accrual-based liability numbers, showing up in government balance sheet. Because there's no government-wide or public sector-wide consolidated financial statement, I had to manually aggregate the liabilities of central and local government to show in the figure the dotted violet line in the graph. That actually goes north of 100% of GDP. So when people try to understand or evaluate the fiscal soundness, which number is the one we should rely on? That is actually the question everybody asks. And to expand this view on, for the asset side of the public finance, I throw in 4 balance sheets in the screen. But they should look confusing enough to you and to our general public as well. What is aggregate or total assets or liabilities government is holding to provide public service in the future? What is the net asset? Well, based on the balance sheet number 1, on top left, 555 trillion won is a net asset. But in balance sheet number 2 at left bottom, 1,918, or 3,024 trillion won per GFS is the right number. Actually, accrual-based system of national accounts in balance sheet number 4 shows 4,372 trillion won as what is owned by public sector as a whole in the form of net asset. So from fiscal information perceived by a general public's point of view, all of them have may look confusing. From information producer's point of view, all those numbers should have its own meaning, serving different purposes. But citizens may be confused, and citizens may believe that all this fiscal information somewhat looks obscure. So to organize our thought in the issue of providing clear and understandable information, or ultimately to improve fiscal accountability, we at the Government Accounting and Finance Statistics Center, well, including Government Accounting team, team leader Jin back there, and Settlement and Education team, team leader Sung-Ho Yoon here also, Fiscal Statistics team, team leader Yoon-Jin Park here, and Director Chang Won-moon. Well, all of us have been debating, well, discussing, and researching about the better way to use accrual accounting information. And as part of all those efforts, we looked at some of academic research and international cases on the use of government accounting. We actually stepped back from technicalities of accounting, but focused more on the political feasibility of making and providing a comprehensive financial report for the entire public sector. So borrowing from Hill and Hodges' conceptualization, we can say there are 4 modes of government accounting. From the very micro at the entity level to the most macro level for the entire nation. And budgetary accounting for government-wide management of public money is equipped. And for fiscal, with a fiscal sustainability report, more long-term perspective is maintained for intergenerational fiscal policy analysis and policy decision-making. And each mode of government accounting is mainly performed by either accountants, statisticians, public servants, or economists. But our concern was those practices were oftentimes siloed from each other. When these different modes are necessary, well, all those standards were developed to serve their own purpose. But there is a pressing demand for consolidating all those fiscal information to provide a more comprehensive view about the status of public finance and to enhance fiscal transparency and accountability in a democratic society where we are living now. And why? Because money is fungible. It can go around, and it is possible to hide some of debts or liabilities in between boundaries of entities, unless all those entities are consolidated. And also, it would be inefficient to borrow money by one government unit when there's unused public money sitting in idle in such an account somewhere else. When economy is booming and tax base is expanding, this would be lesser of the concern. But when we face a shrinking fiscal room, like now, and especially considering the grand scale of upcoming fiscal challenge to cope with aging population or climate changes, more efficient PFM, public financial management, leveraging the informational benefit of accrual accounting should be kept, and especially with consolidated accrual accounting numbers. That becomes more and more important. And for this, systematically linking micro-accounting at entity level to government-wide or nationwide macro-accounting can be considered as a useful policy tool. Especially consolidated whole of government accounts can be one of those tools. Then why not all countries are jumping into this practice and use the whole of government accounts? Some of technical challenges, such as data collection issues, information system integration issues, or accounting standard and practice harmonization issues already indicated by prior studies. But they should not be the ultimate answer for not using or not jumping on this practice of whole of government account. At least we believe so, because if there's a certain technical problem out there, we can either invest more resource to fix it or find a way to go around. So we believe that there is another reason or more fundamental reason behind of using or not using this whole of account by one country versus the other. So we try to learn more about why some countries are using whole of government account and why and using more, and why some countries are not using or use it less. For that purpose, we looked into 5 countries, 5 country cases, focusing on the historical background of adopting the whole of government account and the way those consolidated fiscal information is used. Well, but as a disclaimer, this is an outcome of our desk research on this topic. So we'll briefly talk about UK case first, and New Zealand followed, and after that, Australia, Canada, and Sweden. Ultimately, to draw a lesson for Korean public sector. In the UK, the fiscal information consolidation was considered from the outset of implementing accrual accounting in the government. So when resource accounting and budgeting was introduced, accrual accounting was considered as a policy tool to enforce the fiscal rule, the code for fiscal stability. During 1980s and 1990s, many UK government business units, such as British Petroleum, Rolls-Royce, British Airways, and many utilities were privatized or sold off. And through this, government debt of less than mid 40% of GDP were kept, while public spending was actually rising due to a global recession. But due to this concern of disappearing government assets, fiscal rule was introduced. And golden rule of that fiscal rule says, quote, public debt as a proportion of national income will be held over the economic cycle, end quote, rather than an annual mandate. And it also says, quote, government will borrow only to finance public investment, not to fund current expenditure, end quote. So in other words, it is demanded to distinguish public spending for asset formation from the spending for consumption. However, HM Treasury appeared to be kind of reluctant to add this consolidation topic to their PFM reform agenda back then. So the scoping study, to check the feasibility of this preparing a whole of government accounts, was done only after the change of government after 1997 general election, from Prime Minister John Major from Conservative Party to Tony Blair to Labour Party. But eventually, it becomes law to prepare whole of government accounts, including all public sector entities, central, local, and even public corporations, as long as public money is used. And preparing whole of government accounts, through those process, it was intended first use micro accounting information to prepare macro accounting number that can be used for fiscal policy analysis and policy decisions. And two, improve transparency and accountability by showing one comprehensive picture of public finance to the general public. And three, also as a byproduct, through this process of preparing whole of government accounts, UK government intended to improve and integrate their information system, fiscal information systems across the entire public sector. Now, every year, UK Treasury release whole of government accounts or public sector-wide consolidated financial statement. And through this, as an example, debt statistics commonly used for fiscal policy analysis can be mapped into financial statement liability numbers by reconciling the difference coming from like measurement, for example, a long-term provision for pension included in financial statement number but excluded from debt statistics. Those can be reconciled, and also by considering the role of government assets in servicing the liabilities of the public sector as a whole. And as we learned from our previous symposium, KIPF symposium, balance sheet review could be conducted to improve asset management and also to more clearly identify contingent liabilities. How about New Zealand? I'm somewhat nervous to talk about the case of New Zealand in front of Andrew here. But based on our understanding, similar to the case of UK, economic concern, more like deteriorating public finance, was the driver of adopting accrual accounting in the government, actually by directly borrowing the private sector accounting practice. So in Public Finance Act of 1989, private sector accounting standard, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principle, GAAP was adopted almost in its original form to the public sector. So the preparation of consolidated financial statement was taken for granted. Although New Zealand consolidates at the central government level only, well, New Zealand has a unitary system of government, and local governments have power conferred by New Zealand Parliament only, so consolidating central government would be enough. Furthermore, when the consolidation is extended to match with GFS in 2003 and onward, it was just a technical accounting issue rather than the PFM discussion topic among the general public. So all of this implies that it is more of technical issue. Consolidating financial statement was more of a technical issue in the case of New Zealand. And interestingly, deviating from those two country cases, UK and New Zealand, well, both of them are Commonwealth countries, Australia decided to consolidate their fiscal information at the federal level only, separate from state or territorial government. Instead of this kind of fragmentation, the Australian consolidated financial statement show whole of federal government accounts, separate from general government accounts, but it shows its intersector elimination and also show public corporation accounts separately. So although Australia does not directly consolidate government financial for entire public sector, including public corporations and local governments, enough information is actually provided for covering all those entities in the same statement. So from the general public's point of view or citizen point of view, information can be obtained from the one statement. And another Commonwealth country, Canada, it seems somewhat, Canada seems a little bit passive in utilizing whole of government account. Instead of motives for linking micro-accounting to macro-accounting for fiscal policy analysis purpose, in case of Canada, Auditor General actually pushed the idea forward from financial reporting point of view, more technical accounting point of view. We actually experienced lack of extended research about the case of Canada, so we had to stop here. But at least we find that Canada provide two consolidated financial statements, one for government as a whole and one for public corporations as a whole. So at least Canadian people see two pictures, not multiple pictures of public finance to understand what's going on. The only non-Commonwealth country in our study is Sweden. And one of the reasons to include this Sweden case in our study is actually based on its similarity or seeming similarity of a Swedish PFM system to our Korean PFM system design. And what drawn at the bottom portion of this slide is actually a visualization of current Korean PFM system made up with four main pillars with two. Four pillars include midterm expenditure framework and top-down budgeting, and performance management goes with digital budgeting and accounting system or deep brain preparation. Those were considered as four main pillars of PFM reform back in early 2000, and still main structure of Korean PFM system is utilizing that structure. Interestingly, Sweden also implemented top-down budgeting, also along with the midterm expenditure framework, and tried to apply a performance management system to fiscal management using accrual accounting system. And distinct from like Parliament-driven kind of efforts in UK and others, in Swedish National Financial Management Authority drove this PFM reform effort, like what has been done in Korea with Ministry of Economy and Finance. So, and similar to our, Korean consolidated financial statement, Sweden also prepared whole of central government accounts only. So based on the similarities, we believe that the case of Sweden warrants a little more investigation. So we are trying to continue our research to look into more deeply about the case of Sweden. But for now, we can move on to wrap up my presentation by comprehensively considering all those five country cases. So to consider all these cases all together, we can find that the consolidated financial statements are used as one tool for each country's specific policy goal. In UK and New Zealand, using a private sector accounting standard for government, that made it easier for them to use whole of government accounts. Consolidation is already built in to the private sector accounting standard. But federalist system such as Australia and fragmented accrual system between central and local government shown in Sweden lead to whole of, not entire public sector, but whole of special government, specific government was possible. That was the feasible solution given the political and institutional compatibility with other part of overall governance system of those countries. In addition, it has been reported so far that the consolidated financial statement for entire public sector, whole of government accounts, is actually not fully utilized for public financial management, except for New Zealand. And considering New Zealand is relatively smaller and simpler in size and complexity compared to other large-sized countries, Korean public sector may need to carefully consider what to do and how far we want to go in terms of integration of all fiscal information across the entire public sector. And all of our study does not provide any conclusion or prescription, but we hope this symposium is the beginning of more serious and in-depth policy discussion on the use of whole of government account in Korea. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Bao. Thank you for your presentation. He talked about this consolidated fiscal reporting and the purpose and the cases of different countries, and also the importance of the accrual accounting and the consolidation and the implications for Korea from other cases.
두 번째
순서인 한국 지방 정부의 재정
Next topic is consolidation of finance statistics of local governments, and the presenter is General Manager Park Chung-gyu from Local Finance Association. You have 20 minutes, and let us welcome him with a round of applause. He is a certified accountant and has built his career in the accounting firm and Korean Research Institute for Local Administration. And since 2016, he's been working at the Local Finance Association as in charge of finance statistics.
네, 안녕하십니까.
Good afternoon, everyone. My topic today is consolidation of financial statistics in Korean local governments.
통계본부 통계관리부에서
I am Park Jung-gyu. I'm from the Local Finance Association, and I'm in charge of Finance Statistics Department. And the organization that I'm working on was established as a specialty organization for local finance and accounting under the Ministry of the Interior and Safety.
시행령에 규정되어 있습니다.
And our work scope is established in the implementation order of the Act on the operation of the local finance. And what I'm going to share with you is what our organization is in charge of, which is what most of the MOIS does in terms of the local finance. So this is the agenda of my presentation. So I'll first talk about the scope of the local public sector units and what are some financial statistics made by these organizations, the coverage of such statistics, and we have some different consolidation process for statistics for local governments. And there has been some changes to the statistics process since 2003, and some tasks to improve the consolidation process as a whole, and also touch upon some future challenges. So first is the scope of the local governments. And what all of you, if you are Koreans, you are familiar to this, but if you're foreigners, you might find this quite strange. So there are local governments and local public corporation, and also LGFI, the invested or funded institutions. And there are 243 local governments. And the upper tier governments is 17, and there are lower tier local governments, the number of which is 226. But there are very special self-governing city, which is Sejong, and also self-governing province, Jeju, which is a special form of local government. And we have local public enterprise. The local public enterprise was established by local governments based on a special act called Local Public Enterprise. So there are 160 as of 2023, and 72 of which is local government invested public corporation. And these local government invested public corporation provide services like urban public transit, urban development, and they collect fees from the service users. And there are 88 local public agency, and they are quite similar to the LPE in that they provide service, but they instead collect commissions from local governments, not from the users. So they are under different categories in terms of the finance and accounting. And next one is government invested or funded institutions. So this accounts for the biggest number, which is 860. And each one has legal basis, different legal basis. So the MOIS, Minister of Internal Safety, they designate the purpose for these groups, and there are 94 local government invested institutions, and these institutions are where corporations, 10% of shares of these corporations are held by local governments. And another type is local government funded institutions. And if you look at some examples of the local government funded institutions, they are either local government funded foundations or some special organizations established by special act, like local medical centers and regional credit guarantee foundations and local government funded research institutes. So they are established by special act. And so far, I elaborated on the types of local corporations that could fall into the categories covered by the financial statistics. And next, I'll move on to the statistics themselves. And there are two types of statistics. They're basically the basic statistics are the ones like GFS and PSDS. So these statistics are written as part of the government statistics. So the 01 GFS started to be established since 2002, and also the CRFS. We also have CRFS, and the major purpose of these statistics was to give the MOF the data and figures that they need at a national level. But of course, each local government was in need of some statistical data. So all of these figures started to be collected since 2015. So there are two types of statistics. So one is CFRS and another is consolidated debt. And I'll delve into more details later in my slides, but the two statistics are both based on the Act on the National Accounting and Finance. And two statistics must be included in all the finance planning related documents produced by local governments. So I made comparisons among the four statistics. So the basis would be the institutions that will be covered by each statistic. So for local governments and LPEs, they are included in all four statistics. But the local government invested public corporation, they collect fees, but they don't really satisfy the standards of a certain rate. So some non-financial public corporations are excluded in accordance with some standards. So if you look for some differences, you see the biggest difference in LGFI and Education Finance Center.
기재부에 제출하는
And they are only included into CRFS and consolidated debt.
통계란 것만 이거 지방 교육 재정
And local education finance sector is only included in the CRFS.
이렇게 지금 순서가 차이나게 된 가장 큰
And the biggest reason for such a difference is that the act on the operation of the LGIFIs was only established in 2014. So if you remember the year 2014 and how it is later than the GFS and the PSD, so there weren't clear definitions about the coverage of the statistics, so they had to be excluded.
이제 출자 수령 기관이나 개념을 제공하고
And after defining the LGIFIs and including the new concept into the statistics only started in 2015.
통계별로 출자
So that's why there are some differences in scopes of the institutions that are included in different statistics. And the scope of GFS and PSDS is well known to most of you, so I'm just going to skip this part.
지역통합 재정 통계와
But the CRFS and consolidated debt
중심을 두는 거는
mostly and basically focus on finance status, financial state,
포함을 하고 있습니다.
and
한국
the
발생 기획이하고
Korea is using the accrual basis and cash basis simultaneously. So some statistics cover the cash basis, and the consolidated date really focuses on contingent liabilities, so it requires the data on contingent liabilities. So these contingent liabilities are more on the basis of the accounting purpose.
지금까지 통계가 어떤 것들이 있는지 그다음에 통계별
So I've showed you some slides on the statistics and the coverage of the institutions. And next I'll move on to the process of writing up the statistics.
뭐 순서라든가 이제 뭐 통합 1차적 통합 부채들이 좀
So there are differences in players and the coverage.
통계 종류를 설명드리는
And I already mentioned the fundamental difference in all this data, which was because of the establishment of the Special Act. So first is for GFS and PSDS. So the step one would be each government, each institution must write up their own statistics.
재무정보 관리 시스템으로
So each
것을 쓰고 있습니다.
institution uses eHojo Plus system, which is an upgraded version of eHojo since 2009. And so all the local governments must prepare their statistics data through the eHojo Plus system. And
이 시스템에서
when
결산을 하는
inputting the data, the settlement must happen first
재무 상태 등
within the system. So the basic settlement information is mostly automated within the system, but the internal transactions
재무제표 표에 표현되지 않는
or other data that can't be included in the financial statement, well, they are not automatically generated, but the users must manually put in those data. And lower tier local governments can submit statistics data to upper governments via eHojo Plus.
지방 기업도 이제 자율
And the local
당연히 이제 일반 기관이기 때문에
public enterprises
각 기관은
must write up their own statistics. So they must prepare statistics with Excel form spreadsheet. So you have to put in the data, all the data into the spreadsheet.
이건 GFS하고 PSS는 애초에 특성부터
And
기재부 제출
the purpose of the GFS and PSDS was to give the data to the MOF. So you have to make all the data available in the spreadsheet.
공기업용 공지 시스템인 클린아이에
Or you have to upload the data to CleanEye, which is the integrated electronic disclosure system for LP and LGI-FIs.
여기까지가 이제 각 기관들의 자료
So the submitted data via CleanEye are automatically transferred to eHoja Plus. So that was the first process.
정보를 합산해서
And the second step or second process is the upper tier local government must collect all this data to write up their own statistics.
이 단계도 역시 모든 자치단체들은 이호조 시스템
And all the local governments must work on their data through the eHoja Plus.
자치단체가
And upper tier local governments
매칭시켜가지고
and lower tier local governments' internal transaction data are eliminated in this process. And these documents will be submitted to the MOIS.
각 지방 공기업이 제출한 지방 공기업의 정보를 합산해가지고
And all the data submitted by all the local governments and LPs and LGI-FI are aggregated. And all this work is done in the next fiscal year. So from July to September next fiscal year.
그래서 지금까지 그래서 이런 과정을 거쳐서 이제 GFS
So this is the process you basically have to go through to submit and collect and aggregate the data.
GFS PSDS는
And
행안부에서 기획재정부에 제출하며
the data are submitted to the MOIS and the MOF. And the MOIS do not use the data independently. They just use this data to submit to the Ministry of Economy and Finance. And next is consolidation process for the CRFS. So the step one for the CRFS would be preparing the statistics. So it happens in March and April next fiscal year. And similarly, in the same manner, they use the eHoja Plus. And the LPEs and LGI-FIs and local education finance sector do not use this system, so they have to prepare their own statistics with Excel spreadsheet. And in the former process, the LPs and LGI-FI must submit their data to the MOIS, but in this process, they submit their data to the local governments controlling them. And the second process is where the local government they collect the data from the controlling institutions, and they have to make the consolidated financial information out of all this data. So what they do basically is to see the data in CleanEye. And the data in the CleanEye are automatically transferred to eHoja Plus, and the statistics submitted by each institution that is not in the CleanEye must be uploaded in eHoja Plus. And since this is data related to the local governments, all the data must be consolidated using the eHoja Plus. So the consolidation process happens within the eHoja Plus. So in this process, the LPEs, LGI-FIs, and local education financial sector have some internal transactions, and in that case, all these internal transactions are eliminated.
작성을 하고 그다음 이 중요한 점은
And what's important here
이 지방 정부
is
레벨에서
that
지역 통합 재정 통계는
the CRFS written at the level of local government must be in a form of report using the eHoja Plus, and all those reports must be attached to the settlement documents of each local government. So they are for the purpose of disclosure later.
이 공시된 데이터 정보를
And the data information that is disclosed must be transferred to the sub-tier, lower-tier governments.
합산해가지고
So all the data from the lower tier data must also be included, and they must be ultimately be submitted to MOIS. And the difference between the CRFS and GFS is that in the process of consolidating, not only the local governments, but also the LPs and LGIFIs are all included in the final consolidation process. So the fourth step is the MOIS must come up with the final statistics that include all the consolidated data from the processes below. And next is consolidated debt. So I'll just take a look at the process held by local government level only. So the whole process starts in November and December next fiscal year, and the scope includes all the scopes that I mentioned. So the CRFS was already written up in May, so the data is already there. And the contingent liability takes big importance here. But if the statistics regarding the contingent liabilities are not enough, the manual data entry process must come in to complement it, and all the relevant institutions must submit the additional data if needed, and all this data are then consolidated into eHoja Plus system. And consolidated debt, in the consolidated debt, the performance statistics is one important objective, but there's another purpose that is important. So each local government has to prepare and disclose annual plan for the management of financial soundness. And the annual plan must include fiscal, the amount and changes of consolidated debt in the fiscal year and the fiscal year before, and contingent liabilities. So let me just give you an example. If it's 2023, it should include the consolidated debt and contingent liabilities of 2022 and 2023, and how much has changed. And also, this report will be disclosed as of the end of 2024, taken from the example. So there should be some outlook on changes in the consolidated debt, because you have to make some assumption and forecast. So to sum up, there should be an estimated amount of consolidated debt, and the outlook on changes in consolidated debt. So you can check the annual plans of all the local governments if you go to the website of the local government. And I kept mentioning the contingent liability, so that is the requirement. You have to include not just the debt and but also the contingent liabilities. So you write up this and you put it up for disclosure, and the lower tier government must send this data to upper tier government, which must send this to the MOIS.
지금 설명드린 것 같이 지방자치단체의 통계는 일단
So the statistics of the local governments have different objectives, which will dictate different scope of institution and different process. For example, who's going to consolidate the data and when the data will be consolidated. So it takes a lot of money and time and effort for writing up the statistics. So after the upgrading of the eHojo to the eHojo Plus, of course, we saw some efficiency increase. So one benefit was the consolidated and integrated management of the finance information. Well, before eHojo and eHojo Plus, there were segregation in data and information. So CFR, a different set of data for GFS and CRFS and consolidated debt. So there were segments of data sets. And also there were some issues with the late update and non-conformity between the data. So there were a lot of errors before 2023. So starting from fiscal year 2023, all the data starts from one statistics. And the CFRS and starts first. So the financial state and the internal transaction information remains throughout the process. So there are no additional changes. And another thing that I'd like to add here is that when writing up the statistics, the internal transactions and other items are heavily dependent on manual work of the user, manual work of the person in charge. So the data is not automatically generated. And in previous eHojo, a lot of work had to be done manually, but in the current eHojo Plus, the manual data must first written up in the Excel form spreadsheet, and then you can just upload the spreadsheet. That's all. So when you have to put in the large amount of data manually, it used to take a lot of time in the past, but now it got much faster. So, and in the past, there used to be a lot of errors and sometimes you don't pay enough attention to the quality of the data. So in the current system, in the new system, those issues got improved to a certain degree, but of course we have a long way to go still. And there are some challenges. And I think there are mainly 4 challenges. And this is my last slide. So the first challenge is the integration of unit coverage. And the LGI files are not covered by the PSDS and GFS. And of course, I mentioned this earlier. There are some institutions that are included, but they're not controlled by the local government. So the standards are not really consistent. So there are several issues regarding the unit coverage of these institutions. So we have to unify the standards first. And then the second issue is regarding the integration of statistics. So PSDS and CFAR and consolidated debt, we believe we could find a way to consolidate everything, but there are some different objectives among these items, and and there also an issue of lack of understanding of some items of these statistics, because they see different items and different statistics. So the definition and concepts are not really unified and standardized. And the CSFR and consolidated debt see the contingent liabilities, treat contingent liabilities differently. But as I mentioned earlier, the two statistics are mentioned are based on some special act, the same act. So in order to change this concept, you have to first revise the law. And another challenge is regarding the cash flow statement. So currently, the cash flow statements are not included in the government financial statement. So when writing up a report on the cash use, there are some challenges. But this non-inclusion of the cash flow statement is because some local governments are still based on a cash basis. So it has been really hard to tell them to write up the cash flow statement separately. And the last challenge is improving the eHojo Plus function. And we've been working on these tasks, but they're not easy to tackle, so it takes time. And regarding the improvement of the eHojo Plus function, some issues include users still have to manually input a lot of data, and it also lacks some function of identifying the error data automatically. So these are the areas that we have to work on further. So far I shared with you the consolidation of financial statistics in local government in Korea, what should be the scope of the coverage, and what would be the better process of consolidating the data. So you might have felt some difficulty in understanding this complex process. So that's why I'm making this presentation. We need to see some improvement in the process. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation so far. And thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. You talked about the consolidation of the financial and accounting statistics of local governments, and its integration into the local central government.
And now we would like to invite Nam Sang-wook, Senior Manager from the Korea Fiscal Information Service, on the introduction of the deep brain system. So please join me in welcoming him to the stage. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. He is the head of the Settlement System Operation Division of the KPIF and overseeing the fiscal system operation since 2016. He studied international development cooperation at Kyunghee University, and since 1990, he has been an expert for IT and e-government solutions. So please, Mr. Nam. Good afternoon. I will deliver my presentation in English.
Thanks for introducing me. Now I'll begin my presentation. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sang Nam from Korea Fiscal Information Service, the KIPF, a public institution under the Ministry of Economy and Finance. It gives me great pleasure to meet all of you here through the fifth KIPF Public Sector Accounting International Symposium today. What I'm going to present today is to share our experience on dividend plus from accrual accounting perspective, the Korean case per enhanced central government settlement works. From now on, let me start off my slide. This is the content of my talk today. First of all, I'll explain what we do in the KPFIs and the Korea Integrated Financial Management Information System, or IPMIS, which is called Dividend Plus System. Then I'll talk about the national accounting and settlement works in Korea using a Dividend Plus together with its achievement and future plan. Korea Fiscal Information Service, or the KPIS, was established as the dedicated public finance management institution in 2016. In line with the public financial management, the roles of the MOEF is to make fiscal policy decisions, secure budgets, and form a government-wide implementation project organization when necessary, while the roles of the KPFIs is to support government policy decisions and operate the FMI system or Dividend Plus system. This is to establish a robust IT governance structure for the public financial management of Korea. In the middle of the slide, you can see the development history of the Korea IPMIS, starting from the first generation all the way on the right to the first generation of the Dividend Plus system. Dividend Plus system is homemade and locally developed software, and the Dividend Plus system has been used since January 2022. So what is the Dividend Plus? So basically, this slide is an overview of the Dividend Plus system. On the left-hand side, you can see the entire life cycle of public finance supported by Dividend Plus system. The cycle starts with the establishment of the 5-year National Fiscal Management Plan to budget formulation, budget execution, and so also accounting settlement. That's basically the central financial management system. Then on the right-hand side, we have the financial linked system, the financial analysis system, and the open fiscal data. So the next part is about the account settlement module of the Dividend Plus system. Through the Dividend Plus system, the closing of the settlement reports are also automatically generated. We have automatic generalizing system in place, which is also then automatically generates the financial accounting slips. So the Dividend Plus system is designed not to require any double entry bookkeeping knowledge from end users per posting. The slide shows the detailed diagram of the account settlement function by a Dividend Plus system. So the settlement of account function are performed as per both a budgetary settlement of account and on a cash basis, and financial settlement of accounts on accrual basis. So first of all, the all budgetary settlement of accounts refer to the finalizing revenues, expenditures for a fiscal year, and the preparing for a report of settlement of revenue and expenditure accounts. So second of all, financial settlement of accounts is performed to identify the financial positions and outcomes of the financial operation based on accrual basis and double entry bookkeeping accounting, and produce financial statements accordingly. So as you can see in the slide, as for the financial settlement of account functions, automatic generalizing, adjusting financial settlement closing, eliminating internal transactions, and cost accountings are all processed by the Dividend Plus system. So basically, this slide shows the timeline from when we first came up with a plan for the accrual accounting system in Korea, all the way into the introduction and implementation of this. So actually, this timeline of history tells us many things. So as you can see, a long journey. We first came up with a policy announcement for accrual accounting system in 1998. And then we came up with a legal framework for the National Accounting Act in 2003, and the National Accounting Standards in 2009, and so on. So after we established a legal framework, we had pilot operation of accrual accounting system to central government for 2 years. Then we finally introduced the accrual accounting system in 2011 for Korean government, our central government. When we came to submit the national financial statements to the National Assembly in 2012, so also relevant organizations such as the Government of Accounting and Finance Statistics Center and the Korea Fiscal Information Service, or the KIPF, were established to perform the accrual accounting system efficiently and effectively. So these are the governance structure of relevant organizations on national accounting. So the organizations promoting Korea's accrual accounting systems are the Ministry of Economic Finance, or MOEF, Korea Institute of Public Finance, or KIPF, and the Korea Fiscal Information Service, or the KPIS. So aside from those regular organizations, the Korean government operates the National Accounting System Deliberation Committee for the deliberation on enactment, revision, and operation of laws related to processing or settlement of a national account. So this is the national accounting legal framework in Korea. So you can see that we have 4 levels of legal structures for accrual accounting system together with the practical guidelines. The National Accounting Act is the highest level among the legal system to provide the structure and composition of government financial reports. Then decree, law, and regulation follows to complement the National Accounting Act. So the practical processing guidelines are to provide chart of account explanation and settlement preparation guideline for financial or accounting officers. So these are the major changes in national accounting institutions, including the National Accounting Act from 2009 to 2025. So from 2009 to 2010, the Korea government made various detailed guidelines for applying accrual accounting practically, and made changes such as central government accounting standards, including asset revaluation. So in 2011, in order to officially perform financial settlement of accounting, relevant laws stipulated the basis for establishing the duties of the accounting officers and providing financial accounting settlement training to the public officials. In 2013, the National Accounting Act was revised in order to enable financial settlement of account as per the government reorganizations. In 2022, the National Accounting System Deliberation Committee has decided to reform the national financial statements so that the public can easily understand and utilize it. Next year, in 2025, the revised National Accounting Act is going to be implemented, which includes the establishment of the government cash flow statement as part of the financial statement. So this is the national settlement process. As we can see in this slide, the Korea's national settlement process is carried out in 7 stages. So as the 5th stage, the National Assembly reviews and makes a resolution on a national settlement report. So these are the composition of national settlement reports. Korea's settlement report consists of a settlement outline, revenue, expenditure settlement, financial statements, and performance report. So as you can see in the slide, the settlement of revenue and expenditures includes general settlement of accounts for the government, revenue and expenditure settlement by line ministries and by funds. These are the result of the budgetary settlement of account on a cash basis. So as for the financial statement, we produce 3 kinds of financial statements, including the statement of financial position, the statement of financial operation, and the statement of changes in net asset. These financial statements are the result of financial settlement of account on an accrual basis. So from this slide, it shows the result of the financial accounting settlement since 2009. So after pilot operation for the final financial accounting settlement for 2 years from 2009, the Korean government conducted the entire country's financial statement for the first time in 2011, and produced the financial position statement and financial operation statement for the general account that comprised of 49 central government agencies, special accounts, and funds through the different system. So in 2012 and 2013, changes such as a method of recognizing pension provisions were reflected in the financial accounting assessment report. And in 2014, the active fiscal operation policy affected the financial statement result. So in 2020, our national pension operation profits were reflected as a liquid and investment asset, and the changes in general tangible asset due to the reassessment of the state-owned land were captured as a result of a financial statement. In addition, the result of active fiscal management to overcome the coronavirus crisis were reflected as a major government debt increase. So in 2021, the increase in the national asset was greater than the increase in liability, which was the largest increase in net asset since 2011. So these results were due to the increase in profit from the operation of national pension reserves. In 2023, an increase in current and invest asset were calculated, which were due to the fact that operating rate of return of the national pension fund was at all-time high. So in this way, we can see that a various virtuous cycle structure is in operation, in which changes in fiscal policies are reflected in the financial settlement result, and the analysis of the financial settlement result are then transformed into the fiscal policies. The graph above A shows the scope of the financial settlement by year. So in 2011, national financial settlement had been processed for general account, special account, and funds of central government in Korea. Since then, we can notice that there has been changes in numbers per central government agencies, special accounts, and funds. The graph below B shows the number of government organizations using a dividend plus system and the linkage organizations by year. So we can see that there has been an increasing number of government organizations that use the dividend system from 2009 till 2024. So left graph C shows the changes in asset, liability, and net asset on the financial statements of the Korea central government from 2011 till 2023. The graph on the right D displays the result of the Korea central government financial operation. So we have seen there has been lots of changes in national accounting institutions and fiscal policy changes since 2011. So since 2007, the Korea government has established and maintained the dividend and dividend plus operation and support organizations in order to accommodate the changes in the national accounting institutions and fiscal policies for the financial settlement task. Since 2016, the Korea Fiscal Information Service, or the KPIS, has accomplished the improvement of the financial settlement system, and the MOEF and the KPIS has conducted multilateral efforts such as providing user support in various ways, conducting user training as much as possible, and so on. So we have experienced that not only managing information system itself, but also supporting financial officials who do the settlement works of general account, special account, and funds do matters to complete the financial settlement works in a timely and correct way. So this slide shows what were the major changes in the information system that is called dividend system for the financial settlement modules function from 2017 to 2023. So we could categorize the functional changes into 7 major types as shown in the slide. So those are the verification functions, consistency check functions, newly added or modified report, linkage functions, functional changes due to improved procedures, functional changes due to government organization change, and functional changes for user convenience improvement. So the following graph shows the statistics on the types of change to the financial statement module of a dividend system for 7 years. As you can see in the slide, the number of functional changes in the financial settlement modules have been decreased year by year. So the following graph shows the result of 7 major functional change types in the financial settlement module of the different system starting from 2017. So as you notice from the graph, the number 1 functional change type in the financial settlement module is consistency check functions. And the second one is the functional changes for user convenience improvement. And the third one is verification functions. From the data above, we can say that the consistency check functions were the most important one among data to data, report to report, since we have lots of serious procedures, repetitive works as for the financial settlements work in nature. So now we'll look at the financial information disclosure status in Korea in order to address the transparency matters on the government financial information. The Ministry of Economic Finance annually publishes the Consolidated Fiscal Balance, which provides a comprehensive overview of our nation's fiscal status. Another medium for financial information disclosure is Open Fiscal Data Portal. This financial information disclosure website is open to everybody who can freely access various financial information at any time. So in a global perspective, the Korean government disclosed the financial information according to the international guidelines such as Government Finance Statistics or GFS, or Public Sector Debt Statistics or PSDS, which are posted in the portals of the IMF, the OECD, and the World Bank accordingly for international comparisons. So this slide shows the achievement, what we have made from the accrual accounting system in Korea. So let's look at the achievement from the institution's perspective first. The first achievement is that it provides abundant financial information that is helpful in establishing a mid to long-term fiscal expenditure plan for Korean government and determining fiscal soundness by recognizing potential liability such as provisions for pensions. For second one, it can manage national asset comprehensively and systematically by accounting for national properties, goods, bonds, infrastructure assets under construction, etc., which cannot be possible by cash basis accounting. So as for the third one, it can improve the reliability of national financial figures announced by the government because there are national accounting standards it can depend upon. The first one is that the scope of the government, including the national financial statistics, was expanded to the standard of general government, including public institutions. And the original financial statistics were prepared based on the settlement result according to the accrual accounting, which made it possible to improving international comparability and reliability of national financial figures. Last but least, under the institutions, performance-based financial management has become possible through the calculation of input cost information in every program level. So if you look at the achievement from the information system aspect, there are additional 4 major accomplishments. So from the beginning, the different system was designed and built to allow normal users to apply a accrual and double entry bookkeeping system without any accounting knowledge. So also in order to ensure the accounting officials can smoothly perform financial settlement works using different systems, multilateral efforts has been made, such as providing user support during the intensive settlement period, conducting accounting settlement training every year, and providing various manuals for effective settlement tasks. The different system as locally developed software and each operating organization, the KIPF, can effectively accommodate institutional and policy changes and user requirements, which has led to establish the accrual accounting system in Korea. So even though, so we have made quite some achievement by implementing accrual accounting, there are still areas for improvement. Number one, there is a need to increase the usability of accrual-based national accounting information. This agenda is one of the hot topics since we have operated accrual accounting more than 10 years. So there are some concerns for usability for the financial information made from the accrual accounting. Number two, it is necessary for the general public to easily understand national accounting information and to organize the financial report in a simpler and clearer way. So this is the last slide of my presentation. So currently, the MOEF is working for a new project called National Settlement Report Reform. So in order to move ahead for more advanced, more practical accrual accounting system in the near future. So when the project is done, the Korean government, central government, will produce the current cash flow statements as part of the National Settlement Report starting from the fiscal year 2025. So also this project is to rearrange the financial statement report in order to provide more informative financial information and to make them more accessible by the people. So as an outcome of this project, we can surely expect that the financial information of the Korean government will be aligned with the people's perspective soon. So this will end my presentation today. I hope this was informative and helpful to all the listeners. Thanks for listening.
네, 발표 감사드립니다. 남상욱 부장님께서는 한국의 국가회계 투명성과 효율성 정진에 기여한 디브레인 플래스 시스템의 주요 기능과 결산 모듈에 대해서 설명해 주셨으며 국가회계 발전 과정과 그리고 결산 절차 및 향후 디브레인 시스템의 개선 방향에
He also discussed the development process of national accounting settlement procedures and implications for the future improvement of the D-Brain Plus system. I thank all the presenters for your active presentation. So we are slightly behind our schedule due to your active enthusiasm. So we will start the panel discussion session at 4:40 after taking a 10-minute break. Thank you.
네, 이어서 종합 토론을
We will move on to the discussion, and the discussion will be moderated by Professor Kim Bong-hwan from Graduate School of Public Administration at Seoul National University. He also served as the moderator for last year and this year. Thank you for your contribution. Professor Bong-hwan Kim serves as director of the Center for Sustainable Accounting and Finance Research at the Graduate School of Public Administration at SNU, and also was the president of the Korean Association of the Government Accounting. And please, now I will turn it over to moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kim Bong-hwan, professor of the SNU Graduate School of Public Administration. As was last year, I'm here as a moderator. I'm so pleased to be here. And KIPF has been having this symposium on public sector accrual accounting for fifth time. In the public sector accounting for the accrual basis, this is the best symposium in Korea. And every year we are covering very meaningful and significant topics. And this year we are talking about the consolidated fiscal reporting for the public sector. And we had presentations, and also we will now have discussion with the presenters and the experts. First of all, before we begin discussion, I would like to introduce the panelists. Here on site, we have Dimitri Gutfingel, Senior Governance Specialist from World Bank, is here with us. Please give him a big round of applause for welcoming. And also, we are joined by Professor Kim Tae-dong of Cha University. And we have Senior Fellow Chang Woo-hyun of KIPF.
네, 그리고 온라인으로
And also from online, we are joined by the Rose Smith, Program and Technical Director of the IPSASB. Thank you for joining us.
네, 그리고 발표
And also we have the presenters from Yonsei University. Professor Park Sang-jin is here with us. And also General Manager Park Jung-gyu from Local Finance Association. And Senior Manager Nam Sang-uk from Korea Fiscal Information Service.
네, 모든 분들
So thank you everyone for joining us.
오늘 주제
And the topic is about the consolidated fiscal reporting and the consolidation of information. With the consolidation, we can discuss more on the fiscal accounting and the accrual basis. So Professor Park talked about the WGA, the other countries' cases, and implications that we can learn from other countries about the Korea. And also Mr. Park talked about the local data, how to generate the data, what they're doing. And last presentation was from the Fiscal Information Service. Mr. Nam talked about the D-Brain Plus system. So the central government, the fiscal data management and generation system. So when we do the research about the public or government fiscal accounting, there are so many data or information generated, but how we can make better use of them is the question that has been lingering on our minds. And we want to gain more insights to find the answer by hearing from the experts. First, I'd like to ask Mr. Dmitry Gufingel, the World Bank specialist, for some discussion. And one thing I'd like to ask apologize is that we are really behind the schedule now. So like 5 minutes will be the time that you will be given to give some comments and observations. And then we will also hear from the presenters and then maybe have some Q&A from the floor. So now I'll turn it over to Mr. Dmitry Gufingel.
Thank you very much. Should I present from the table or go to the podium?
Yeah, you can just sit here and say.
All right. Well, first of all, I would like to appreciate President Lee and also Sung Jin for the invitation to this important event. It's an honor for me to be here and be part of this 5th symposium. I would also like to clarify a little bit my role at the World Bank because recently I joined PIFA Secretariat. For those who are not familiar with PIFA Secretariat, it's a golden standard of PFM assessment in the public sector. But PIFA Secretariat in turn is part of the global unit, global governance unit at the World Bank. So also in parallel, I work on a global agenda related to financial sustainability reporting, and also still provide support to my colleagues in ECA region. ECA, it's Europe and Central Asia region, and particularly I'm actively involved in the Pulsar program. Pulsar is a regional ECA program, which means Pulsar sector accounting, public sector accounting and reporting program. So what I would like to share with you today is a little bit non-traditional approach to the consolidation, which we try to present in a relatively recent paper issued by the Pulsar program related to consolidation of financial statements at different levels of governments. And while I was watching the different presentations of the previous speakers, I realized that the approach that we proposed in this knowledge product, it's actually very relevant and hopefully could be also applicable to the case of Korea. So basically, since my time in Ministry of Finance, Federal Ministry of Finance in Mexico, I always was wondering whether it's possible to consolidate financial statements of a country as a whole. Not only the central government, not separately the subnational government, not the SOE sector, etc., but to have the idea of financial situation of the government as a whole. And apparently it's not so easy if you follow the accounting procedures according to the IPSAS, and specifically IPSAS 35. So we were discussing with our colleagues from Zurich University of Applied Science, and specifically with Dr. Andreas Bergman and his team, and we come up with this interesting approach which aimed to combine the accounting using the consolidation using the accounting procedures, and specifically IPSAS 35, and also compilation, statistical compilation based on the GFSM 2014. I have prepared 2 slides very briefly just to give you some visual background on what I'm going to talk about. And actually our colleagues from IMF already explain extensively what the IMF consider as a public sector. So basically our goal was how we can consolidate financial statements of the central government, state government, local government, social security funds, and applicable public corporation sector as a whole, rather than focusing on one particular sector, which is consistent with the principle of control, for instance, established in the IPSAS 35. So we came up with this process. It's a pretty comprehensive process. It's actually a little bit longer than this one, but I try to focus only on the financial consolidation part. There is 2 additional phases, 4 additional steps, also to compile the GFS using the same approach. But given the time constraints, I'm going to focus only on the first 10 steps. So the first step is actually delimitate what would be the scope of consolidation. Are we going to follow the IPSAS 35, or we want to expand the scope of consolidation and include some additional sectors like the subnational governments, public university, SOEs, or any other entity that might be receiving public funding, without considering the principle of control, which is relevant in large countries that could have federal structure or different level of governments. So once the scope is defined, the next step would be maintenance and preparatory work according to the accounting standards and statistical framework. And the second step would be development of integrated and harmonized chart of accounts, which would also integrated with budgeting and fiscal statistics aspects, as the colleague from IMF also was pointing out. And this could be a little bit challenging in the measure that the number of entities to be consolidated will be increased, because some entities like central government line ministry would be using probably public sector accounting, and some SOEs would be using IFRS or different private sector accounting framework. So it's important to develop this unified chart of accounts which would be crucial to data collection and operation of integrated financial management information system, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. The third step, fourth steps would have to do with the application of the same accounting policies and using the same cutoff data for financial statements. And naturally, as mentioned, some of the entities that we would like to consolidate might have different accounting frameworks, might have different cutoff dates for their reporting. So it would be important to develop a binding instructional package for accounting closing and reporting, which might not be necessary the framework that would cover the public sector accounting for all the sector, but at least focus it on the aspect of closing and reporting. The next step, which was extensively covered by our previous speaker sharing the experience of Korea in terms of the brain system, is the development and use of integrated financial management information system, which could be also challenging in large countries where the central government could use one system, the subnational government could be using completely different system, including Excel spreadsheets. SOEs traditionally also use all kind of different accounting and financial management softwares. So what is the solution there? How you can consolidate financial information coming from so many different information systems? So ideally, obviously, the answer would be to get an integrated financial management information system used by all consolidated entities. But if it's not possible by any reason, there could be a kind of reporting interface that could be used by all consolidating entities in order to submit the accounting financial information using the standardized templates, and obviously based on the integrated chart of accounts. The next steps would be collecting of entities data, and also a colleague from AMF was talking about that. There could be different approaches. There could be centralized approach, decentralized, and hybrid approach. Of course, if we have a single IFMIS, it would be much easier to collect this data. If we have different system, probably we should be using hybrid approach to collecting this data. And this is why the next step is also important, which is the checking for consistency of the data collection by conducting different quality and plausibility checks, at least to identify any material inconsistency and fix them before the consolidated financial statements are prepared. The next steps is actually following the IPSAS 35, and it has to do with conducting the different consolidation adjustments. And basically, we are talking about the combination or aggregation of different items of assets, liabilities, revenue, expenses, but also to offset the carrying amount of all investments and portions of controlling entities in the control entities, and also elimination of reciprocal balances or transactions between the different consolidated entities. Once it's done, we can have another round of final verification of results obtained, and ultimately the generation of the financial statements and any complementary information such as notes and disclosures that are part of this financial reporting. I would stop here and hear from other speakers.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. Dmitry Gufinkel talked about the integration or the consolidation process and the compiling process. And thank you for sharing the details about the process. So by each step of the process, we need to think about scoping the public sector, and there are many challenges for each stage. So we have to think about how to tackle and approach the challenges to have really quality system and the process. Thank you for sharing the insights.
감사드립니다. 예, 다음은 김태동 교수님.
Next is Professor Kim Tae-dong.
안녕하세요. 자유과학대학 김태동입니다.
Good afternoon. I'm Tae-dong Kim from Cha University. And the reason I am sitting here is as Professor Kim Bong-hwan was the former president, my predecessor in. So that's why I'm here, and I don't have much knowledge compared to all this field expertise. So my perspective would be that of a general public or just a Korean. So we all know the purpose of the accruing system and the benefit of it, and we all hear if we can't measure things, we can't manage them. That's the basic principle of all this. That's what brought us all here. And starting from the keynote presentation and the guiding principles, that was really impressive. And I saw how the government is working on a multifaceted aspect to improve the efficiency of the finance and the transparency. So a lot of the presentations really was impressive. And I can remember just one sentence from the keynote presentation, which was the accrual counting. It just means it's not the end itself. That really was resonant. And by applying the accrual system to upper level finance system, we could get more macro perspective through the GFS. And I believe we will get more advanced perspective in the future if we keep developing this. And I also heard presentations about generational accounting and whether our economy fits the macro perspective. So the right direction going forward should be that we must work harder on improving the efficiency and transparency. And the local governments and central governments are working on sound finance. And we keep reflecting on whether we are working hard enough to harmonize the accruing system and the cash system, cash basis. But if we keep asking ourselves on questions that I just mentioned, all our efforts will be in line with the insights that we got from the presentations. And I really hope to see more ways of utilizing the benefits of the accrual basis. And if we fail to increase the usability of the accrual basis, then I think we are going to be confronted with more challenges in the future. But all the plans that we have right now, if implemented well, the right direction going forward would be to strengthen the monitoring and reporting responsibility. And because at the end of the day, what we want to see more is more transparency and more reliability of the government finance. And I also hope that the future system won't be too complex. And we've been talking about this for years and over again. And the core question that lies behind all of this is that what is the ultimate purpose of the government, which is to work for the public. And what should be the core question that policymakers should ask themselves? And what was really impressive about this meeting is that this was the platform for the meeting of the accounting and the public finance. And for the meeting to develop further in the future, those who are interested in government finance and public finance, and also those interested in consolidated accounting, must get together more often to talk about insights and ways to take advantage of the discussions that we have today. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Kim. And you really mentioned our shared concerns. And as we can see from the presentations, the issues are really complex. The generating the finance information and how to integrate all this data, accounting data, into one consistent system. So this is also about techniques per se, but it's also about the macro perspective related to how the public could use this information and how the public understands this issue better. So that should also be the focus of the government and public sector. So that is the right way forward. And next is Senior Fellow Chang Woo-hyun.
I am from KIPF. I'm Chang Woo-hyun. So I am here because I'm really actively looking into the fiscal data for the accounting purpose. I'm one of the active researchers in this field, so I know how hard it is and how complex it is. And you are doing a lot of great work, and also thank you for having me here. And it was really impressive to listen to these great presentations. And then I'd like to tell you about the areas for improvement later, but I understand the challenges that we are having here, and there are two things. First, accounting and also economics, and accounting and the fiscal studies, there are like a fundamental challenges. The supply side do not understand the demand side, and the demand side does not understand the supply side of this fiscal information. So accounting information, we assume that there is the accounting information, that's the assumption of the users, and the suppliers do not really think about how the users will use the information. That is inevitable. What was impressive was that of financial management, it is more about the economics, and the one tricky question is about the book value. If you calculate them on a book value, you will get the wrong answer. So it should be based on the market value. But we get this accounting data, and accounting accounting information, and we should use it for the right purposes as they are prepared. So that's why we have to gather together, like as we are here, as Mr. Kim just mentioned. It is really meaningful that we are here together working as a whole. And as Mr. Kim just mentioned, there are many entities and many stakeholders. Well, I mean, the consolidated financial statements were what we are talking about. So now they were calling it as the advanced accounting, and what we are talking about is really advanced accounting. So in terms of technicality, it is really difficult and challenging. So this symposium is really meaningful. But I mean, I want to just have a joke. I mean, I'm afraid to make any big recommendations, but so I was thinking about what to do. I mean, when I make a presentation or recommendations, it becomes on my responsibility. So I want to make any recommendations that will put more burden on my workload, but what I want to say here, I mean, it's like the common challenge that we have to work together for. As I listened to the presentations, what really was resonating with me was that the consolidated fiscal reporting, to make it more useful, we need to involve users in the process. So that is one future challenge. So even today, we have to involve users, asking what kind of information they want and what will be useful. So it will be like the public or some scientist or the economist who interpret the information for the end users, and they should be also involved in generating the information or collecting the information. So to this end, rather than talking about some abstract or vague ideas, of course they are important, but we need to talk about more concrete cases, real life cases, because consolidation is a really hard process, and we have to share more concrete cases. And it is really accrual accounting system, and we'd better talk more about the accrual accounting process and consolidation and accrual and the real life cases, and what we can get out of this whole process should be really helpful for the users to better understand and make it more feasible or easily understand. And OECD, they have this expenditure data report, and there was some report whether I did some study onto this report, and we looked into whether their spendings were spent for the right purposes. And when they spend money on the healthcare, things got better. But for low birth rate, for example, it did not really getting to the right outcome that we want. So what if we have like a consolidated data, then it could lead to like a better outcome maybe. So that is like encouraging, or that could be motivating for some people. And about the use, I want to hear more about how to use, because there are so many different figures and numbers, because the liabilities, the numbers might change, and it will only add to more confusion. So what we're going to do, if the data is not correct, what we should do, can we do like some reconciliation of the accounting numbers or a separate process? So we want to hear more about this, how to use. So to conclude, I mean, having one unified framework is good, but we have multiple purposes, and so we'd better come up with like an integrated and consolidated framework, and how to interpret the information for different cases should be also discussed. I told that this is the complex case issue, and I'm sorry for adding more complexity, but thank you for the great insights, and I see bright future for this whole case. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chong, Senior Fellow. As we do the research, that is like the ongoing challenge, the gap between the accounting, economics, and fiscal studies. So, and also how to involve the users in the generation process and the process of using the data. and how, when we generated the data, how can we better use the data? So that's one thing we need to figure out. And also the consolidated fiscal data, the expenditure, whether they were effective in getting the right outcome. Maybe consolidation will help. So thank you for the comments.
다음은 온라인으로 지금 참석하고 계신데요.
Next is Mr. Ross Smith, who's joining us online. So it's over to you.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And I'm just going to share a quick slide here, and I won't spend too much time on it because I realize it's already been a lot of speaking, but I just want to make sure you can see my slide.
Yeah, we can see.
Thanks. So first, let me just say apologies. I did intend originally to be joining today in person, but for unforeseen reasons, I was unable to travel to Korea to be there this week. But do want to commend the KIPF for their 5th symposium. I find this an excellent symposium each year, and I know from an IPSASB perspective, we're always happy to try and attend and participate. And I would like to thank Mr. Sungjin Park, as well as congratulate him on his appointment to the IPSASB. I think he'll be a great addition, and I think the topic we're discussing today at this symposium is an important one for the board to discuss in the future, and I'm sure Mr. Park will bring his views and perspectives based on the work here in Korea to the board discussions. So I'm not going to go through every point on the slide in the interest of time, but I did think it was important to highlight, what the actual IPSAs say around accounting for consolidation. And consolidation accounting in IPSAs, as been noted already, is covered in IPSAS 35, but it's part of a suite of accounting standards for accounting for interests in other entities that's based on different levels and different types of control. And it's a very complex process to do a consolidation in IPSAs, and very challenging, as we've heard from other speakers and from the presentations today. So it's no easy task. However, the principles underlying the reason for consolidation and the manner for consolidation in IPSAs are actually relatively simple, and those flow from the IPSASB conceptual framework for public sector financial reporting and the various aspects around control, and that the economic entity should report on the full extent of the assets, liabilities, revenue, and expense that they control. So when there's more than one organization involved in the economic entity, you should do your intercompany eliminations, reduce your intercompany transactions, and you should present a consolidated set of financial statements. Now that sounds very simple, but as we've heard today, it's not very simple. That being said, it is useful information if it can be achieved, but it is very complex. And I would say that across the world, when we look at countries adopting and using the IPSAS standards, consolidation is usually the last set of standards that are applied appropriately, and in some cases, never applied appropriately. And governments choose not to pick up those particular standards. And I think that stems from the fact that it is very complex, very resource intensive, very systems intensive, and it can be very difficult to get your arms around the accounting consolidation. But nonetheless, there have been a couple of countries that have been successful in this, and the information they get from those consolidated accounts is very beneficial. And we're very lucky that Mr. Sungjin Parks today, his research highlighted 2 of those such countries that do what I would call a proper IPSAS style consolidation. So the UK whole of government accounts that does an IFRS consolidation, which is completely consistent with the principles in IPSAS 35, and New Zealand, which follows IPSAS and the full consolidation standards in IPSAS. And in both countries, that information is put to good use through its integration into statistical reporting and using the accounting data for multiple purposes, as well as in better managing assets, liabilities and contingent liabilities on the balance sheet. And some very interesting work has been done in the UK in particular, using the whole of government accounts to better manage interest rates on borrowings, and management of contingent liabilities to ensure they don't crystallize into real liabilities. So that being said, I don't have much more to add on the IPSAs. It's all on the slide here. And it is very complex. This is an area where we hear a lot of noise. And now that the IPSASB is starting to move into standard setting maintenance activities, I could see this as one of the topics that comes back on the board agenda for further discussion to try and come up with more guidance on how to do consolidation more efficiently and effectively. So with that, I'll pass it back to the panelists in the room. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 로스 스미스 국장님.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ross Smith. He mentioned IPSAS 35 and the consolidation that is regulated by the IPSAS 35. Korea has not adopted the IPSAS 35, and even in country that has adopted the IPSAS. There are a lot of countries who haven't really tried adopting the IPSAS 35 because it's really intensive in resources and time and efforts, as you mentioned. But there are some countries, despite those difficulties, including the UK and New Zealand, who have successfully adopted the IPSAS 35. And those countries are producing really useful information through the consolidation with multiple purposes and usage. And also, the UK has a lot more work. UK is working on other projects related to those. So we all know that this is a complex process. We also agree that this is a necessary process.
So we heard from 4 panelists. And thank you for the great comments and suggestions. And they also shared some supplementary information. So now we'd like to ask presenters to give any comments or feedback or anything to add, like 3 minutes each. So please. We will start with the Professor Park Sang-jin, please.
네, 감사합니다. 토론자분들께
Thank you very much. Thank you for the insightful comments. And also, as I listened to the panelists, it gave me a lot of food for thoughts. How to use. It's been an ongoing challenge. But one thing I'd like to add is, at least, given the research that we did before, as was mentioned by Mr. Kim or Professor Kim, the accrual accounting is not the ultimate goal. It is a means to achieve our goals for policy. And when we use that, it is really useful. So what is the use of or effectiveness of these tool? That is we need to figure out. And the technical issues, well, it's something that we can handle, but why cannot we really realize the benefits? As you can see from the 5 countries' cases, although we have not reached to conclusion yet, but one common pattern is that UK, New Zealand, and these countries in the National Assembly or the Parliament, what are their focus or the priority? For example, in the UK, their priority was, they don't have any right to revise this budget. So, and the Public Accounting Committee across the settlement process, then the Parliament looks into how the budget is spent. So, using the accounting information in the process was the priority. So when we ask them who is the user and the user of the information, it is quite clear. The Parliament needs the data, needs the information. So given this, what about the other countries with the different structures? let's say, across the budget process, I mean, some countries may focus on allocation of the budget, like Korea. So if we have such system or such a structure, can we say that we are the users of the accounting information? Because we only have the limited demand from the National Assembly. So how can we put more resources in, using the information? So this whole process and whole picture should be taken into account to make better use of these fiscal data. Thank you. Thank you very much. So yes, right, the parliament, if they can, or National Assembly, if they can better or use more of the fiscal data, consolidated data, then it can make things smoother and faster.
부장님, 간단하게 부탁드리겠습니다.
Mr. Park Chung-gyu, your turn to comment. Thank you. I agree to what you've said. And my presentation was rather from the perspective of producing the data. So I think my presentation lacked the perspective from the users. Local governments. And I mentioned this in my presentation too, but the local governments create data either to submit to the central government or to review internally. But we still see some domination of control from the central government yet. And what you mentioned, the National Assembly or Assembly. But what's important here is that the start of all this, the data management, was with the need for controlling the local government's debt. But at a local level, the data usage or data utilization is really high because they have to include all this finance data and accounting data to every piece of document required by the local governments and process. So from the perspective of utilization rate, at a local level, the usage itself was high, but when a certain special event occurs, then maybe we have to submit all this data to the central government to be reviewed. So far, we haven't really focused on the need to create or generate the data that is in line with the central government system, because we haven't really had this special occasion where we needed to generate and submit this data to the central government for the special purpose. Thank you for the comment. So he also mentioned the user perspective that he neglected in his presentation. So yes, right, we need to come up with ways to improve the usability of the data. And let's go to the last commenter, Mr. Nam Sang-woo.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments and observations. And during my presentation, in the last part, the future plan, I talked about the project, and I would like to add more. And in 2011, we had this accrual accounting system adopted, and May this year in 2023, fiscal year settlement or the reporting, we had like 13 cycles, and we thought about the usage of the information. So who is the user? National Assembly use it for settlement reporting, but the financial statements, how much will be used. So we wanted to make it like used more and make more useful. So there are three key areas that we have been working on. First is, like I said earlier, the public should be the first in revising the whole compilation of the fiscal information. Number two is make it more useful. And third is to add more value for the information. So first, the settlement, based on the last year's version, it is really a thick book. And these whole books are like a 230 centimeter high. So all the books, no one might like to read these whole thick books of like fiscal data, especially like the public users. It is too vast and too technical, too large. So we have to make it more like easily understandable. And that is the area that we want to work on. And the number two is to make it more useful. It takes a lot of resources. For settlement, we are now working on the process across the cycle. So system needs to be fixed, but also guidelines needs to be improved and revised. And in line with that, we need to offer the trainings. And also for the next year, from January, for 3 months, we will have like an intensive process for budget and also the fiscal settlement process. But given all these like resources that we put into, the output is like a very thick book. And even though we look into only like a relevant parts, not many people might want to read it, so we want to make it more useful so that users will take it as a very useful tool. And the third one is to add more value. We've been having this data for 13 years since the adoption of the system, but internally, the users might include policymakers or government officials, or external users might be some researchers. But how much do they find it really meaningful and enlightening? So we have run some projects. So for example, we have the position statements and we simplify the accounts so it can be more useful for analysis. That is one way, like simplify the whole account. And operation statements, we categorize them by sector and by nature so that the actual data, the financial information can be used better. And to increase the effectiveness of the data, we have to offer more useful information to users. And in particular, the settlement report, maybe for the first time, cash flows statement was adopted so that we can show the cash flow of government budget and the spending. And the other thing is when you look at the settlement report of government, there are annotations or some details that are here and there, but we put it into like one part of the report altogether. So the project started in May last year, and it will be done by end of next year. And we have the really 3 priority areas. And we are not sure yet how much it will be effective, but it will get better than now. And when we have a better system, I hope that it will be more useful tool to researchers, policymakers, and general public users. With this financial information, I hope that it can contribute to making better decisions. That's what we hope. And next year and the year after that, we will share with you the result of the project with a better outcomes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Nam, and thank you for that. Yes, right. You have a very robust plan about making it more useful and adding more value for the public focus. I mean, that is impressive. So when the project is done, things will get better. And very hopeful comments. Like you said, the settlement system upgrade or improvement is now underway. And well, the KIPF, they have this government statistics center, and the center has been really working hard for all those work. And thanks to that, I hope that we can see better and more useful information produced and used by so many people. Thank you. And
많이 지났습니다만은
We are behind our schedule by a large margin, but we'd like to open our floor to get a couple of questions because it's all about users. It's all about you. So if you have any question, raise your hand, please.
제가 한국 내부 통제 이 평가원에 10여 년 동안
I
하면서 경험했던 것과
I have some experience for the last 10 years regarding the national finance statistics.
지자체의 운영에 깊이 관여하고 계시는
And I have a question to Mr. Chang-gyu Park, who's deeply engaged in the local finance and accounting. So before we get the data, there are various forms of decision making and other processes. So that is the inner control. But in order to involve as many stakeholders as possible, there are the inner control committee in every local government. But this committee is rather focused on the vice mayor or vice governor of the region, but I believe the committee should be led by the direct led by direct leadership of the first position, which is the mayor or governor. So the real decision makers must be there to listen to the voice of the users and the decision recipients, but we don't see any process like that internally, and that's why we see so many errors and mistakes. And our audit system in Korea has also shifted towards the internal control because they now realized how important it is. So that's why we introduced a new system of asking for liability by everyone. So the mayor gets the budget, but that's not all. We have to make sure all these stakeholders are involved in the process of monitoring how those budgets are used. And also what's important here is disclosure of such information, at least once, twice a year or once every quarter. But internal, right now, there is some disclosure system, but we have to strengthen the system. But because currently, the current disclosure system is exploited as a way of promoting the governor's name or mayor's name. So we have to shift focuses so that this information management and the disclosure of such information, of monitoring the budget process to the first position of local governments, which is governor and mayor. And I mentioned liability by everyone. In the same context, we have to make sure that all the stakeholders are involved in the process, and not just we just show them the results after everything happens. So that is the better way to make sure that we have better public service quality. Any other question?
네, 알겠습니다. 그러면
Okay, there's no more questions. So regarding the question, well, the summary of the question will be, we have to make sure that internal control committee should have more power to make sure the involvement of as many stakeholders as possible. And we got some questions through the online channel, which is directed to Cheongju Park. And one of the questions was that the settlement information comes out too late in the fiscal cycle, so the information is not properly utilized. And the question is also about the lack of expertise of the local government officials. So his idea was to establish the accounting experts department. So if you can answer those questions, please. Well, I believe the last question was the easiest one, so I'll start with that. For the accounting expertise, well, yes, I completely agree, and I see your point. We don't have much accounting expertise at local government level, but I believe the accounting isn't the only area where we see the lack of expertise, because all these officials and public servants in the local governments are on a circulation basis or relocation basis. So when, for example, when you make a complaint regarding some construction case or approval case, and then the person in charge, the public servant who was in charge, left the position, and the newly coming person doesn't know what is going on. So this lack of expertise isn't an issue that could be improved in a short term. And I believe that, well, accounting expertise and creating this department dedicated to accounting, for example, can't be an ultimate answer. Because the whole framework of local government officials and public servants is on the circulation basis. So we have to work on that first. And we do have a certain system where we can appoint a specially designated public servant. But there are also some issues with the HR and reinforcing the workforce at a local government. So we do have this and that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that in our system, but I believe the problem is the whole system of public servants at local governments. So I believe the system was created by someone who really doesn't know what is going on. So I do agree that the public service quality isn't really good so far. So your question is not answered. Your problem is not solved by a proper person. So we have been working on this for years, for a long time, to really improve the public service quality. That is what is going on. And with the first question about the stronger internal control, yes, your question is really relevant. You do have a point. And controlling the internal process by involving as many stakeholders as possible is important. But I don't think I'm in the right position to address that question. But what I can say is that for audit system, we don't see much change in that direction to begin with. And the audit system, the audit unit in each local government deals with a lot of data that need to be submitted to the National Audit Service. And they already have this system that's established a long time ago. So your internal control committee that you mentioned, led by the second position of the local government, is one of such systems that's been established a long time ago. So yes, I do agree that we have to involve as many stakeholders as possible in the process of monitoring the budget implementation and the policy making. Yes, I appreciate the comment. But the thing is that we are way behind our schedule and we must wrap up right now. So thank you very much for your active participation. So my thanks goes to all the presenters and panelists. And I really appreciate your insights. And I also like to thank the audience joining us both online and offline. Thank you very much. This concludes the 5th KIPF Accrual Accounting International Symposium. And I thank all the participants for your presence and active participation. Thank you.